Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Ulysses Town Board. It is April 22nd, 2025, and I will call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, we may. Mr. Boggs.
Present.
Ms. Bouchard.
Present.
Ms. Olson.
Present.
Mr. Goldman. Ms. Weatherby.
Present.
And how is the sound for everybody at home? Good. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, we do have a meeting agenda posted. I do have a couple of minor tweaks. I would like to pull under old business, the Maplewood Culvert Project. We do have a contract from the DEC, but Blixie will be with us at the next town board meeting. We have some time on this because we just got it last week, like last Thursday. She's going to be here. It's a completely reimbursable grant, provided we stay under the, I think it's 395,000 cap. But she's going to be here to discuss some other things, but we'll talk about how to finance it. So before we sign the contract on that, we want to have the board have a conversation. And since she was going to be here next time anyway, and it's not, we have a little bit of wiggle room on that. I'd like to pull that from the agenda. And under new business, I would like to add an item C, Earth Day proclamation. Are there any other changes or alterations anyone else would like to make to the agenda otherwise?
Move to approve as presented.
Are you okay with amended instead of presented? Is that a friendly? Awesome. Okay, great. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we will move on to a public hearing. We tabled this public hearing last time. We adjourned it. We did not close it. So the public hearing is on a proposed donation of land to the town for recreation purposes. Anybody who wishes to address the town board will have 3 minutes. May I have a motion to reopen the public hearing? Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. We'll go back and forth. Any person present, either online or in person, may have up to 3 minutes to address us on this item. And then if you have other items you wish to address the town board on, we will also have a privilege of the floor following that. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board?
I will.
Sure, go ahead. You can come on up if you want.
I'm getting used to that. I'm not a public speaker.
Well, you could be with all of our meetings. We have plenty of opportunities.
I guess I just have a question. From the last public meeting, it seemed like there was a lot of demand and interest as a school function for sports. So I guess my question is that something that is the primary goal for the park? Or is this going to be a park that's going to be for like families that can go and just enjoy like swinging, you know, where smaller kids can go and play, and it's not just for a school functions like soccer, baseball, stuff like that. So I was a little concerned by that because that's a big difference between families going and kids playing versus a lot of school buses, a lot of commotion, a lot more activity. So that was my only concern.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Okay, we'll move back in person. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? Okay, I will move back online. Anybody online who wishes to address the town board on this matter? Okay, final call, in person or online, if you wish to address the town board on this. Okay. Well, then I would
Move to close the meeting.
not the meeting. I can't close the meeting yet. Sorry. Move to close the public hearing. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. That brings us to, I'll be able to answer your question under old business. Sure. Privilege of the floor. Again, everyone who wishes to address the town board has up to 3 minutes. Back and forth online or in person and then online. Anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? Okay, is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Okay, well, we will have another privilege of the floor at the end of the meeting. Oh, sorry, Roxanne, go ahead.
Yes, actually, I just wanted to raise, that I didn't know if you needed to talk about at this meeting, the proposal for the $100,000 grant that we need to talk to the NYSERDA people on the 28th about. And we're supposed to give them a new plan, right? And then the energy, budget, is being done by Tatum. And they sent, late yesterday afternoon, the person doing it, Bennett, sent an email that just said that we could do this remote credit program. And then he's been doing energy calculations of how much we have to fill out to do that and how much solar, we could propose that we would buy. So, I just was wondering if because we have to talk to the NYSERDA folks on the 28th, they kind of want a plan. If you guys needed to, so now that we know that we can do that thing, we can get the credits here if you need to do anything before y'all talk to them on Monday. That's all.
So I'm waiting for the report. I'd like to see the report that's due on Friday. And then my plan is to be able to review it and then go talk to NYSERDA on Monday. Of course, the contract will come back. It's really a question, we put in a plan and is, are we changing directions or able to continue with the plan? And so if the report comes back that we can continue direction, to me, it's the same as what the town board already previously authorized through a gatekeeper resolution and the application that was already submitted. So to me, I think we're staying the course as opposed to changing a new direction.
And I guess I forgot, sorry, that I didn't think that we proposed to them that we would do it at the town barn because we heard we might not be able to. And the original thing that we put in was maybe town hall, maybe town barn. So we never, I didn't know that the board actually decided, yes, if we can do this, we're doing it at the town barn. So that's all I'm asking is if that can be said tonight so that we can move on with NYSERDA.
So I'm not comfortable, having not seen a report, bringing a proposal to the town board to take a direction until we see a report. However, the town board has considered it we've had quite a bit of consideration about it. And the conversation was that we were going to preserve the flexibility back in December when we had the conversation and the town board approved the gatekeeper resolution. We could do it at either location. So I will be bringing back a contract if we can do it. And I want to see the report though, that's coming back from Tatum Engineering that's due on Friday. And if we can do it, then we'll go to NYSERDA and we're not signing the contract that day. It'll come back to the town board. And does anybody have a problem with me doing that? To me, that seems like the direction of the gatekeeper resolution.
I think it makes sense to wait for the report. I understand NYSERDA wants to have some understanding of where we're thinking and which direction we're going to, but as long as we're not signing anything.
No, there's no signatory that would happen yet. It would come back to the town board.
Roxanne, are you saying we need something concrete by Monday?
No, I was just, my understanding was when we went to NYSERDA, it was the either or. They said, no, you have to do one or the other. So we talked about doing the town barn, but we weren't sure that it came up that it wasn't clear whether or not we could do that, do the remote metering. So then the board approved hiring Tatum to do a study and to find that out also, which is great. And that's what they're doing. And they did the energy calculations that came out basically the same as the ones I showed you in terms of how much is extra and how much we need. And they sent an email to Teresa and Caitlin and Carissa and I yesterday afternoon saying, we can do this. Here's a copy of the chart. Here's a copy of the outline of the form that you'd have to fill out to NYSERDA, the application, to be able to do the remote credit, just showing that it could happen. So I was just asking if, when we talk on the 28th, since the report's coming on the 25th, if it's gonna be okay, presuming when you read the whole report, it's the same thing as the email they sent. That we can go forward with that plan and say, yeah, and not ask them to postpone to another meeting. You don't have to sign anything. But they want to know what the direction is, and then the contract will get negotiated for the details of that direction. So I was just bringing it up to make sure potentially we could move forward without needing another board meeting.
So we won't be able to sign anything without another board meeting, because we'd have to have a
Of course, I
contract.
don't want that. I'm
But
saying-
the gatekeeper resolution was doing it either location. We've already determined we can't do it at this location. So the only alternative under the application that we put forward is the barn. So if Tatum goes forward with the report, which it sounds very promising that it's completely possible, but beyond the remote metering, I have other engineering questions that I need answered in that have not been shared with the town. Or have not been shared with us yet, and that's what we're waiting on. We had pushed Tatum to give us more information earlier on the NICEAG component, because that was a huge determining factor. So right now, you know, we had one of two options. We already eliminated one option, not going on the town hall. So now our only direction is the town barn. It's looking promising. So I was just planning on bringing the town board, provided Tatum, which like I said, it seems very promising. For provided those questions have been asked and answered, that we should be able to bring you back a proposal on doing the project of the town barn. So to me, it was in the same scope you'd already authorized. So that's what I was.
Because if we couldn't do that, then we'd have to have a whole new plan.
We will.
To do something else for 11,000.
Right, and that would have to come back to another town board anyway.
But we
So
would have to tell nice, third up.
We can by default. Well, we only have one option.
Right now.
right now, we only have one option, which looks like it's doable. But if something changes between now and Friday, and that report comes back and says we can't possibly do something at town barn, then I will bring it back to you and we'll move on from there. I mean, I think that becomes, at that point, I would turn to NYSERD and say, okay, what else can we do? What are other options of projects we could execute with your funding? But I don't think we're there. So I'm not going down that rabbit hole until I'm forced to, until I'm chased in by a coyote. So, and I don't think that coyote is present. So I think we're headed in a good direction because Tatum seems to be finding answers that quite honestly contradicted the NICEAG call that Carissa Teresa and I had with NICEAG. And if that's the case, I'd be delighted. So, but thank you very much, Roxanne. Was there anything else you wanted to add? No. Okay. Anybody else want to make comments in privilege of the floor? Okay, then we will move on. We have a presentation. Matt McKenna is here from MRV to talk to us about the Agard Road culvert. As you are coming on up, I will remind the board back last year, we completed a grant project through the DEC that was an engineering study on our six most worst culverts in the town. And we have already received funding for the Curry Road Bridge, which is currently a culvert that will become a bridge in the new designs. We received funding allocation for Maplewood culvert and for Garrett Road culvert. And the next in line for terrible and need to be solved culverts is Agard Road. So
Thank you, Caitlin. I appreciate the intro there. Yeah, I did print hard copies for anyone that needs. There's two proposals tonight. The first proposal would be to go forward with another grant application for specifically for the Agard Road culvert. As Caitlin mentioned, we studied 6. We applied for the Garrett Road last year through the DEC WQIP Water Quality Improvement Program. And we're very successful. The town received a grant award of over $500,000, 75% of the cost of that culvert itself. We focus on the Garrett Road culvert from an aquatic connectivity standpoint. That's part of the WQIP program. That culvert had a 0.0 score out of 1, so the lowest you could possibly get. So that was the focus with that culvert and that grant application was focusing on the aquatic connectivity, the passability of wildlife to make its way up that stream. And I think here's with the Agard Road, similar program, but what we're actually looking for and will be likely applying for is the culvert replacement program, which looks at hydraulically undersized, structurally deficient culverts. Same thing, up to $1 million grant award with 75% grant, 25% local match. So with the Agard Road culvert outlined in the engineering report, that total project cost was about $958,000. So using round numbers, the grant request will be about $720,000. That culvert, here's an overview map looking at the Garrett Road, Maplewood, Reynolds Road, Curry Road, and Agard on the project map. This is near Agard Road and Jacksonville Road. So as part of our engineering report, we looked at evaluating the existing condition at the 50 and 100-year event. And then also making design improvements to make sure that those culverts could pass the 100-year event. Of all the culverts, the 6 that we studied, Agard was the worst condition hydraulically and had the least hydraulic capacity of the 6. This culvert was actually not able to pass a 50-year event. So what was maybe a 72-inch diameter, 70-inch diameter culvert, we're actually looking to go to a 3-sided culvert that could be 15 to 20 feet wide and about 4 feet tall. So the area is, yes, 3-sided with a natural bottom. And that's an item that the program within the engineering report had been focusing on.
How long is it?
I want to say across the road is about 70 feet.
Where's the money coming from?
What?
Where's the money coming from for our part?
This is not a match part. That's a different culvert.
Where's the one where we have to come up with 25%?
Yeah, I don't have that information tonight, but Lacey will be here about it at a different time.
So this is the existing culvert, 70 linear feet long, about 65 inches wide by 46.5 inches tall. So it's oblong. We'd be replacing that in kind with a much larger 3-sided culvert. That kind of shows you the breadth of it. And here's looking at the different hydraulic elevations, even with going to the size. We meet the design standards to pass the 100-year storm event without overtopping the road. And that is one thing that the highway Scott involved throughout the report development had noted, that that road has actually physically overtopped during flooding events, which doing so potentially impacts the condition of your roadway and other conditions down in that area. So coordinating with the town, this is kind of that next one up on the list that we feel fits this grant program. Our scope has us assisting with developing the grant and submitting to DEC. Our costs have stayed the same as it was last year. And I would just say that this program is, the WQIP program is not new itself, but I would say the focus on stormwater is on the newer side of things. I expect that the state will start to catch up to this program, as with more awards, there's more interest in trying to find that pot of money. So I think the town has positioned yourself with an approvable engineering report that you can now, as we did last year, go out and apply for funds.
So you may remember we applied for the engineering study because this particular grant source requires that you've done the engineering study in advance of applying for funds. So it opens the door. So we did the 2 years ago, we did the study, and then in the next funding cycle, we were able to do Garrett Road and get funded on that. So this is the next one. Scott couldn't join us tonight. He did email the board his opinion. Internally, he had sent an email also on February 21st, and I just wanted to introduce that also. He said, I would agree that Agard Road would be the next priority. The reason for the hydraulic analysis is the exit of the culvert. The exit is not capable of handling a 2 to 3 inch rainstorm. which we have plenty of. That's added that part. Now, and if we upsize the culvert, it could potentially make things worse. So a downstream study would need to be done before we can proceed.
And that's a good transition into the second proposal. I don't know if you want to focus on the first one or go right away. The second proposal is outlined in the engineering report. And depending on the areas that you're in, you know, if we have a culvert that's hydraulically limited and surcharges or overflows a roadway, if we all of a sudden open that up to be the wide of the doorway, as wide as the doorway, we're gonna let that much water downstream. So the point with the hydraulic investigation or the drainage investigation is we want to make sure that if we're releasing all this water that we've calculated downstream, that it's not going to make things worse and that the town will now be chasing new tail. So with the drainage investigation, our study area takes us from the Agard Road culvert with hydraulic information we already understand in the engineering report, down a drainage ditch to a road crossing to Jacksonville Road. It goes diagonally across Jacksonville Road to what would be the west side of Jacksonville Road. And then there is a driveway crossing or entrance crossing at the solar field there. So our study area would include evaluating that culvert at the solar farm, Jacksonville Road road crossing, and then all the way back to the Agard Road. And what DEC and the WQIP program is looking at, and it's specifically where you have projects in a floodplain or a flood hazard area, is using what they call the HECRAS methodology, which is a software and a program developed by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. And that program is used to develop and expand and review flood hazard mapping. So essentially, by running this model and this analysis, we can get a baseline existing condition through our project area, as well as looking at what potential impacts downstream we may have, the town may have, if we widen this culvert. So coming out of this evaluation, the town would have a pretty good understanding of, okay, if we open up this culvert and make it X times bigger, we can generally understand if we're going to make any negative impacts downstream in this area.
You have a map with that?
Do not have a map of that area with us, but in terms of linear feet, it's about 1,200 linear feet
It
from.
would be helpful if you had a map of all this that you're talking about.
Included in our proposal, so that proposal, total of $16,500. $5,700 is actually going out and doing an additional survey. So he has some design information, but we need additional downstream survey information, culvert inverts. Inverts and data on those culverts, which we don't have. Our focus area was this culvert specifically. Our hope is that with the survey data that we get and the topographic information, we'll be able to use that, or how we'll be able to use that for the design if and when that time comes. So it's not going to be money or efforts that go unused. And then the drainage investigation or the HECRAS study is 10,800. So there's two components to that proposal.
Questions?
The last thing I would just maybe add for the town consideration is we may find and determine that the downstream culverts are undersized. We may find that they're okay. But at least at that point, the town has information to use in hand.
I suspect it'll be the not as great information, or I mean, not as exciting information. Well, it's always helpful information to know one way or the other.
And I think we don't want to flood anybody downstream out, so I think it makes sense. And that's as far as it goes, like topographically. It
So
wouldn't make sense to follow it any further. It kind of ends right there.
it meanders.
I mean, I know you can probably follow it all the way to the lake.
Yeah, so
We
I
don't want-
think to not take it too far, after that it meanders to kind of falls upstream of the falls. So it
Oh.
flows through some open fields. So after that, it kind of whether it's wetlands or wooded areas, you know, I think you could really get lost in the evaluation, taking it beyond there. So that was how we defined that, those limits.
Kind of a logical ending point.
That's how we,
Okay.
Yeah, that's what a map would be helpful.
yeah, I apologize.
You know, limits of the contract, so to speak.
Looking back at the history, it's my understanding, we did a hydraulic analysis of some variation also from Maplewood Drive.
Okay.
So there's a history of, doing this, to be competitive. And so could you speak to that a little bit about the value of doing this in advance of an application?
Yes, so I think it will help get this analysis in front of the DEC to show project readiness, because if you were to move forward, if you were to get a grant, you would still be required to do this. I don't know with the size and the increase that DEC would forego that. We're also in a class stream C stream water body. So there will be some permitting and involvement with that. There are points and scores in the WQIP breakdown from 2024 that reference those analysis. Those more are particular to where you have a culvert actually already existing in a flood hazard area.
Okay.
This is outside of flood hazard, but you're doing what they're asking in the worst case condition, and it's all going to be necessary as part of the project. So again, just like the survey, I don't think it's going to be wasted efforts. And I just think it's going to show the town's desire and need to really focus on this.
I don't remember the exact year of this one, but I remember when you did the presentation on the 6 terrible culverts, and they were all from like 1965 and, you know, decades ago. So this is not infrastructure that's been replaced anytime in recent memory.
So your 958,000, is that for this culvert? I didn't follow that.
Yes,
Is
that's
that-
the total project cost for this
this.
culvert, correct?
And this is the study for the expanded area, is that right?
Correct. This is looking at if we build this culvert today, what impacts would that have flooding wise downstream?
That's what this does.
Correct.
And we have, you know, we do have Curry Road, we have Maplewood and Garrett, but we're just now getting the Maplewood contract. I mean, it came last week. We don't have the Garrett Road contract. So we're looking at a project that's, if we got funded for this, is probably a couple of years away from construction anyway. So I think continuing to stagger, and we don't know if we'll, you know, apply. We applied on, you know, it took a few times to get Maplewood. It took 5 to get Curry. So getting in the pipeline of our next worst culvert. That was interesting. You know, I think there's value to that as well.
And I also, to expand on that, you know, part of the application, we may find out that we can improve aquatic connectivity. There might be some other things there. But I guess my point being is, I truly do think this program is going to get caught up statewide, and we're going to see more applications going in
WQIP.
for culverts. Specifically stormwater, where it was drinking water and wastewater, that typically wastewater being in that WQIP program. Now they've opened it up to stormwater and looking at culverts, bank stabilization. They're now, the DEC, in my opinion, is starting to focus on water breadths, wider, looking at watersheds.
Oh, I
And-
could tell you that's very true.
and
from
how-
DEC permitting.
And how nutrient loading to those water bodies, it's kind of part of this bigger picture that DEC is focusing on. So to get an application in earlier than the rest of the state might be successful.
So the recommendation from Blixie is to use the DA fund balance. The total cost, so it'd be 16,500 for the project, and then 5,700 for the application component. Last year in the 2024 budget, we came, the DA fund balance was about $30,000 more than we budgeted for. And so this would be 21 and change. So her recommendation is to do that in its current form. That fund is at 48%, which is above our fund balance policy. So fund balance, you know, for the public, I know it's preaching to the choir here, best used for, one-time expenses. This is obviously a one-time expense, right in there. So that's her recommendation.
So this is not budgeted, is what you're saying?
No, it wasn't, it was not a budgeted expense. But we have fund
But there's
balance,
money that could be used to this without putting us in a hole.
yes. So yeah, so we ended up about $30,000 more in fund balance in the DA fund at the end of last year than we had budgeted for because of savings. You know, cost savings during the year. And that puts us at a 48%.
But it does raise a philosophical question about using funds that we didn't pass on the budget for projects the board wants to do.
Okay,
I'm just saying, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
I mean, feels a little awkward. That we don't have, it's just the five of us deciding that. Rather than it's in a budget that the town gets to vote on.
the town doesn't get to vote on the budget though.
There's constituents of the town. Vote on the budget.
No,
Just
they
the
don't.
five of us do.
They do the school budget, but they don't ours. So, yeah, so, I mean,
Throughout the year, there's projects that come up,
Yeah.
either with design or engineering or, gosh forbid, a disaster
Yeah. I'm not
that we
opposed
need to, we go into the fund balance for. Again, it's, I don't think we go into it too often.
we actually
But it
did
is
not put
available.
we didn't put anything in the DA fund this year. In the line budget for bridges or for bridge engineering. So we
But we
did,
have reserves.
we do have reserves, but our reserves actually are bridge repair, or capital improvements. So, we would have to go through a capital improvement. You can't use, this doesn't qualify per the comptroller, we can't use bridge repair funds, bridge repair reserve funds for studies. And so that's off the table, and capital improvement reserves would have to go to permissive referendum, which would put us 30 days out, which closes off our funding cycle for this year. It would put the study too late to,
But if we got the grant, it would be a 75% grant, like the other one.
Correct.
So we'd have to come up with 250 grand.
yep, and Blixie will be here to go in detail to talk about how we're funding Maplewood and how we're gonna, do Curry Road. Curry Road is a funded one, so is Maplewood, fully funded, as long as you stay under the cap, but we will have to bond for it. When we applied for the Garrett Road, it was at 75% with a 25% match. I mean, it's that or pay for them out of pocket when they fail, so it's.
So how did this come up ahead of cycle? I'm confused about that. We've got the other ones.
It's not ahead of cycle. This is a study
Well,
to
it's
apply
not
for
in
the
the
next
budget.
round of money. Right. So we just, in the budgeting process last year, we didn't look ahead to this potential project. Instead, because that would have had to, if we had budgeted for it, we'd have had to raise tax funds on it. Instead, we effectively baked money in, it's not a savings account, but fund balance does serve can serve as that purpose. So that if we had a need for it, we could draw it down, but we didn't have a known need 6 months ago. Or more than 6 months ago, August of last year.
Do we know when, you don't know when the grant is coming out though,
We don't yet.
so this is all preparing, but
Yes,
it's
it's
likely that it's gonna
Typically
be
been
summertime.
May, June,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's. We're on, we got a grant group that's on pins and needles, so to speak, waiting for the announcement. Because
Yeah, it's typically late July, it's due CFAs, it's a CFA
At
sign,
least in May,
the release in May.
Yeah.
June, July,
early August,
so.
notification in December.
And how long would this drainage investigation take?
I would say that we have to come out and survey, whether that's MRB ourselves or a sub-consultant. We left that a little bit open to provide some flexibility. So I would say within 2 weeks, we would hope to have survey back to us with a base map. And then your hydraulic analysis is gonna probably be 2 to 3 weeks by the time we can get in, develop an existing conditions, review it, develop a propose, have the chance to review it. So,
So we would have, I mean, it'd be well in advance of any grants being due. But we would probably want to get started before that grant is actually issued in case.
yeah, if the town would like to proceed with this, we would like to get started as soon as possible, just because it's a pretty involved hydraulic model. And we'd also like to leave ourselves some time to meet with the town and present the findings.
When would we be on the hook for the full amount? $250/$1 million.
So that would be for
Years.
construction costs, so that
Right.
would be when the town would decide to proceed
Well, you're in a
with.
grant cycle, right?
So you may hear end of this year. If the town applies this summer, you would hear likely by the end of the year, yes or no on a grant. We heard yes. Here we are with the Garrett Road. Town hasn't received the contract yet. It's April. Takes months to get under contract with DEC. There's plans of finance, obviously, like you've talked about with the 25% match that would take time to get going. So yes, you're probably. Year to two.
28.
Yeah, well, yeah.
27, 28.
So, and then you have, the engineering aspect of it before we can let out contract.
In the Maplewood contract, though, I saw that it's you have to start construction within 3 years from signing the contract.
That's a different contract. So that's a Bridge New York contract.
Okay,
So,
but it's years out.
yeah. So we have yet to see we have yet to see a contract from DEC for this particular program but, we're months away from having an announcement, so we haven't even gotten to contract yet. So my guess is, I would hazard a guess that we're looking at actual construction on a rapid scale for Garrett Road in 2027. I think that would probably be, I think that if we get a contract relatively quickly, right? And then, so another year, another project, we could be looking at 2028, 2029 potentially. So. Or just,
And it depends on if it gets.
of course, so, and it might not get approved, like Maplewood, it was multiple grant cycles. Curry Road was, like I said, 5 grant cycles. It could be, we could be reapplying, right? So. No guarantee, but I think this is one of the most important things the town needs to address with recognizing climate change, and the rapid rain events we're seeing, and we know we have deficient in infrastructure, so continuing to move the ball forward for future boards, so
But I also appreciate considering downstream effects.
absolutely.
We're not just replacing things, but looking at what might happen downstream to properties. We don't want to just replace everything and flood everybody else out downstream.
Definitely do not want to.
Don't want that.
Turns out DEC doesn't want us to do that either. So. Thoughts, questions, concerns?
We have a list of any others that might come out of cycle like this that we would use.
Not for this
Fund
year.
balance?
Not for this year, so this is all part of the CFA funding, so we'd be only applying for this one project this year. And for next year, we can have a conversation preemptively to talk about what the next culvert is and potentially plan for it. The challenge being that we didn't know that we had received the Garrett Road culvert contract until after we had done a grant cycle. Or I'm sorry, we received notification of Garrett Road in December, having passed a budget 2 months earlier, right, or a month and a half earlier. I was frankly surprised. I'm grateful to MRB, but I was actually surprised in the first round, we were able to get something because of our history. It was taking a few years. So I think knowing that what happened, so that's part of the reason we didn't budget, thinking that quite honestly, we're gonna hit repeat on Garrett Road, which would have been, $5,000 or $5,700, whatever. But for next year, when the budget planning process, we should talk about the next culvert. I can't remember off the top of my head the next culvert on the list that we need to, Reynolds is up there. And what's the other one?
Curry.
The Curry Road one's up there too. That's a double one.
That's the
too.
other Curry Road. Isn't it?
It'd be
Yeah.
handy to have that report again.
I would, that culvert, those two culverts, I wanna say like 112 inches in diameter at least. We walked right through them.
Mhm.
The Curry
And
Road ones?
Yeah.
two of them, and the picture on the cover of our report is that almost overtopping the road and flooding
Uh-huh.
that property, so that would absolutely take a hydraulic investigation and
That one, wouldn't that one maybe possible too with Bridge New York funding because of the size or replacement? Or
certainly probably could fall into that.
my dream is to send all of these new
Yeah.
bridges to the county.
We did talk about that at the engineering report, so I think if you get to the 20 foot width mark, now that culvert gets assigned a BIN, a bridge identification number. And there is potential that county can help take over the maintenance of that, so that's,
But Curry Road.
Like, yeah,
Can
but
you get another copy of that?
I'll send you an electronic one. We have it on the SharePoint.
The report.
yes.
Yeah.
You definitely can.
Pull that, send it out tomorrow. I'm not gonna dig right now, but, yeah. Any other questions?
One last question is, it'd be nice if you guys had a rate sheet in your proposals, because you talked about if there's any extras. Or additional work,
Okay, rate sheet being,
principal, engineer, draftsman.
Hourly
clerical.
rates.
gotcha, okay, noted.
So move the request.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, because of how fast this happened, the town attorney has not signed off on it yet, but I.
Drag it out longer?
What?
Do we need to?
No,
Wait a minute.
so I should have an answer back in the next couple of days, but
That's fine.
I didn't see any cause for concern. I didn't anticipate he would have cause for concern, but
Yeah, we're,
I just need the final, okey dokey.
that's fine by us, and, so we may get things moving in the works, but understanding. things that occur. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time tonight. And I'm glad,
Thank you, Matt.
I thought before we might have to go to a special meeting with a public hearing. And so congratulations, glad for all of us that we didn't have to do that.
Thank you for having me, I appreciate it.
If we'd had to go into reserve, we might have had to do that. But, okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us to potential park donation update. Don't have a lot of update, simply that we're gonna intend to start reviewing the environmental review form at our next meeting on May 13th. And we'll review the feedback that we received from BZA, which was no comment, and county, which is no comment, and the planning board, which had a few comments, relatively minor comments, but we'll review all of that. And to answer the question that was raised this evening about school demand. At the public hearing, and I think this is what you're referring to, you heard a lot of parents coming and talking about, or coaches, they were all parents also, talking about sports their kids play and the coaches, the teams they coach and all of that. School sports don't actually effectively start until 7th grade. The school pays for no programming for school sports outside of PE education classes. All of those teams are not school teams, so they don't ride school buses, they ride in the backs of the minivans or SUVs or sedans. Their families are driving, so those aren't school sports. Those are kids who are in school who are playing recreation or club sports, either through town recreation programs, and we have no school buses, or there were coaches from Trumansburg Little League. They got it right. Taganic soccer. There was a basketball coach there, but he didn't identify, he was with another program. So those are they're not school sports when you think of school sports with competitive school teams competing against Moravia, for instance. Now, there's a soccer program in Moravia. I could see a soccer game at a park, or it happens at Trumansburg, in the school that they're, you know, when Tagatic Soccer plays a club from Moravia, they may play on the school property. So I just wanted to distinguish that those are not, school sponsored sports. So, I think all of those sports would really love it if the schools would give up transportation equipment to let them use for it, but instead they carpool. And in their own vehicles. So that's that. And to your question about what kind of park is this going to be? Thank you for setting that up, because I'm happy to let the board know that our application to design Cornell's Design Connect program for community engagement to determine what kind of park, if we go forward with the park, the community would like, was accepted. So that would set us up to be able to have that Cornell program come out in the fall, starting in August during the fall semester, to start working and engaging the community in surveys or forums or things like that. So the public has an opportunity to actually specify what they want. Because like I will continue to say, my idea for a park and Barry's idea for a park and your idea of a park and your idea of a park and Matt's idea for a park, they may look nothing alike, right? A park can run from a walking trail to, it can be completely paid exclusively for pickleball. I don't imagine that it would be that way, but we at this point have no development plans. The intention has always been that there's no specific design. The donation would be for park and recreational purposes, but what those actual purposes beyond that in more specific terms need to be determined by the community through a community engagement process. So it was good that Cornell selected the program or selected us. But of course, the town board hasn't adopted or accepted the donation, hasn't gone through any of that process. So if the town board ends up not accepting the donation and that process doesn't continue, we have a backup plan in Salem Habitat. So we can move forward either way. So that's for the gatekeeper resolution. Previously, we applied under both projects. One is the primary and one is the secondary. So any questions about that? Any questions about where we are in the process?
Great.
Got a lot of public feedback. I think as of just yesterday, maybe it was, or Sunday, it was all uploaded. Don't know on the website of written comments. And I believe we had about 27 comments, public session at the last public hearing and another tonight. So that's a great participation. So I was excited to see that much community engagement. Does that answer your question?
Thank you for answering that a little bit. So my question is, so if Cornell comes out and gives you suggestions, or whoever is among the group to give them suggestions, will they do a drawing up so you can visually? I mean, I'm a graphic designer, I can visualize it myself, but other people probably wouldn't be able to visualize what their purpose is and what they're trying to express. And then would that be sent up, like a picture sent out to the public to give their feedback? I guess I'm trying to figure out, you know, when and if the board accepts it. I imagine then it will be the next step of doing a drawing or a visual aspect of approximately what the crits are looking at, what the board is looking at, and then the public makes a comments. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably farther down the trail
Yes,
than
I
I
know.
can firmly say anything to. So I can tell you that when the application to Design Connect, they asked for us to, if you could only get one thing out of their program, what would it be? And I said community engagement. I really want the opportunity for the public to gather either in person or through electronic opportunities to share their thoughts and opinions about what they would like to see in a potential park. And if that isn't too much work, because they only have, right, they have there's a limited time frame on their ability. If that could be converted, the second step would be, it'd be great to see a concept design. of how those things could be integrated. I don't know if we'll get, if this all happens, I don't know if we'll get to a concept design. I think that's the next logical step, is to have a concept design, because I'm 100% with you. I'm a visual learner. I like to see how things fit together. So no disagreement on that. It's whether or not that's actually achievable in that particular phase. And as the board has talked about, and which I'm committed to, is also not burdening the taxpayer with a lot of expenditures that come with design, with high quality, as you well know, right?
Right.
And high quality design is can be very expensive. So there would also have to be a process of external fundraising to actually go through a process. But I don't anticipate the Cornell program, like, now this is our site plan, and now we're gonna take this to environmental review. Like, they're not gonna produce that level of quality. Again, not a criticism of them. Okay?
Right.
It's simply, that's not achievable in a 3.5 month process. So the first primary goal of the Design Connect program is to get the community the engagement. And if we could get a preliminary concept idea for community discussion, I think that'd be an awesome point to get to. Or maybe even a couple, right? Like, there's obviously different iterations. But I did prioritize in the application because of what I had heard in the public and the desire to determine as a community what could be potentially on the property. That as being the primary goal to achieve from them, because that's an expense that's very expensive if you hire a planning firm to do also, right? So if we can partner with an established program, then that was my goal. So I hope that's
I
helpful.
would assume that the Friends are part of this to figure out if they agree with it, or is that just a decision that only the board will be making?
So if the property is accepted, it ceases to be their property. So they cease to have legal control over it. And so they and everybody continue, I hope, to be engaged participants in development of plans and get feedback, because the more participation there is, the more community buy-in there becomes, right? And so I would hope that they would have that, but in reality, once you sell or give away a piece of land, you cease to be the ones in control of it.
Well, they
Same
could
way.
have deed restrictions.
There will be some deed restrictions
Property.
that they've already stipulated about lighting.
Noise.
Yeah, so, but beyond that, that's not them personally anymore. That's bound into the legal document.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, no, thank you for that question. Any board questions?
So what's our next step on this?
The next step is we'll start looking at environmental review. And that'll take us some time at our next town board meeting. And then by that meeting, we should be able to, and maybe even in advance of that, be able to release the draft donation agreement, and the board can start discussing the draft donation agreement on the May 13th meeting. So I would not anticipate taking any formal action at the May 13th meeting, more time. So because we want the donation agreement to be out in the public and for the town board to consider, and for the public to consider, because it will have stipulations. And then looking ahead, and potentially at the second meeting in May or the first meeting in June, the board could be in a position to feel comfortable voting. So, but we have some steps to work through to get to that point. Yeah.
Question on the previous resolution. We didn't read the full resolution, but the way I was reading this, is it okay to talk about that now? Or
Sure.
it says, for $5,700 and the drainage investigation for 16,500. It was 57 and 10.8, which equaled 16,500.
Yeah, there's two separate proposals. I did the exact same thing, and actually it's two separate documents. So,
If both of them. Grant writing is the 5,700.
Mhm.
And then the drainage assessment or study is the 16,500, which includes the 5,700 for the survey.
Said on page 4, total compensation 16,500.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a different, but that's only one, right? That's only the drainage investigation.
Guard Road?
Matt, do you?
But
wanna
there's a
check that?
Am I
second,
reading the wrong one?
there's a second proposal for just the grant support,
We have a,
both for AGARD or.
do the grant writing and the grant application that was provided as a separate proposal. For 50
Oh, I see.
For 52.
Grant writing,
50.
Egard Road replacement.
Oh, did I put the wrong amount in my resolution? That might be it.
No, it was 5,700 for the grant writing.
Okay, it's 5,200 for the other part. Correct?
I have 5,200 for the grant writing, that's a standalone proposal, and then
That's probably
for the
my error.
actual drainage investigation, it's. Total of 16,500. And there's 2 parts or 2 scope of services that certain asking for 5,700 and the actual drainage investigation and modeling is 10,000. For a total of 16,500.
So I mistyped. It was 5,200 for the CFA application and I put
So is that a
5,700.
second resolution then? No, I'm not following.
No, it's all it's a single one in the resolution. I mistyped the consolidated funding application is for 5,200.
Oh, I get it, okay.
And
And then
the
this one
drainage
is
investigation
16,500.
is 16,500, yes.
Thank you, okay.
So, Krista, how do you want to resolve that? Because that's a typo and we approved at 5,700, but we're only gonna pay them 5,200. So how would you like me to? Do you want to
Tell them that.
Re-vote on it?
Would you like me to just introduce the resolution again?
Yeah. Do a new resolution.
Okay, hold on. Yeah. So I will move this resolution again. But for correcting the original one for 5,200, sorry, no. 5,200 for the consolidated funding application, grant work. And the drainage
Thank you.
investigation analysis is 16,500. So I will move that, apologies. Thank you for catching that. We wouldn't have overpaid, but I'm glad we didn't reflect in the resolution. So I'll move that. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further comment or discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And then, the next item up, because we pulled the Maplewood, kind of jumped around. The next item up is I wanted to make a note, upcoming legislation for consideration at future meetings. There's new FEMA mapping for all of Tompkins County. And in order for people to actually get flood insurance through FEMA, you have to pass a, local law. And there's a model local law and, we'll introduce it, on May 13th. It has to be done by, I think June 26th. So we're fine time wise. It'll be introduced at the May 13th meeting. So we can schedule a public hearing for the second meeting in May. So that's basically being spoon fed to us. So we'll do that. And then we still need to come back and discuss after we have some draft legislation on Development District 3. So those are,
Are those 2 separate items?
they are 2 separate items. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's
So-
the one in Halseyville and.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, the Bar Angus property.
Yeah.
Yep. But those are coming up. I don't have anything on those tonight. And then the next item, the last item of business tonight, beyond minutes is declaring proclaiming Earth Day in Ulysses as this coming Saturday. There's a lot of wonderful events, the CSAC and
Actually, it's on May
Today.
4th.
Yeah.
Today's
Yeah.
May
Yeah, May
4th
4th.
is the Earth
oh,
Day.
so
Yeah, we-
26th is Jacksonville cleanup, I think.
no, that
No,
was
that
oh,
was
last
last
week.
week.
Okay, so now no, there is something happening this weekend though.
I think it might
Maybe
be
in
the park.
Ithaca.
Stewart Park.
No, there's something local. Hold on. Because I knew I couldn't go to it, and that's why I was feeling guilty. I always feel guilty. So I need to make it for May 4th.
That's
Okay.
the true Yuli.
Okay,
The
Truly.
Truly
Oh, shoot,
Truly.
now of course I can't find it. The school sent something out.
Yeah. I
Um,
actually did want to be.
I thought it was the 26th.
Maybe the school is doing something.
Or I'm just getting my days confused because there's no, it's May 4th also. I'm sorry, I was just changed to May 4th. I'm not really winning at resolutions tonight, so fortunately it's not an actual competition, I guess. So thanks to everybody else who's fixing it for me. Okay. So. Again, we will proclaim May 4th, 2025. As Earth Day in the town, and this is similar to a proclamation I put together a few years ago. There's a typo at the end of the whereas at the top of the second page. There's a extra space bar or backspace, front slash. I don't know. It's one of those. And then there's 2 times it May 4th within the text of the resolution. Chris, did you catch both of those? The last whereas in the first section 1 need to be changed to May 4th. I hope there are a lot of May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Jokes made that day. Okay, and if there are any questions, many thanks to the many volunteers, and we're getting that information. It's certainly getting out. But why it's April 26th is, who knows? I'll move that. Is there a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Andy Hillman emailed me today, so I threw this together, thinking it was this weekend and panicking and.
Is there a Arbor Day?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's Arbor Day.
At our meeting.
Aha, see it, no, see, April 20, and that's probably in his email that he said it was April 20, like, yep,
I
so
think there might be.
that must be it. But we,
Are they planting trees or something?
I don't
Yes.
know what exactly, but I think so.
yes, I can tell you, I don't think he told me any times though.
Oh,
That's where, thank you, that's where the April 26th is coming from. Let me see what he said quickly. Okay, we could also proclaim Arbor Day if folks would like to proclaim Arbor Day, we could also do that today. That is the 26th. Would you like to proclaim Arbor Day in Ulysses? Why not? Okay, so I am not putting together a whole resolution, but I would propose that resolve that the Ulysses Town Board proclaims April 26, 2025 as Arbor Day in the town of Ulysses. And be it further resolved that the Ulysses Town Board thanks the many volunteers engaged in making our community a safer, tree-friendly place.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Got all the days proclaimed correctly this time. Okay, we have our next 2 meetings. It's actually 3 weeks till our next meeting, May 13th. And then followed by May 27th, but of course, May 4th,
27.
May 27th, yes.
Right.
May 4th is
Earth Care.
Earth Care Day. And April 26th is Arbor Day. We have minutes. We had 2 sets of minutes, right? We have our regular meeting on the 8th and a special meeting on the 14th. Did anybody have any changes or alterations they needed to them?
On the 14th.
Mhm.
You need to have a reason why you went into executive session.
The reason was to discuss land negotiations. I can give you the exact one. I did read it out loud in the meeting, but I can look it up.
I could make it in minutes.
Open meeting.
Yeah, you did. I can amend that.
Alright,
On the recording.
yeah, it is on the recording. I can also just pull it quickly. The proposed, oh yeah. We're not taking it care of any more business. It was for the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good vacation.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Any other changes or alterations? Okay, I'll move to approve as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. There are no board notifications. That brings us back to privilege of the floor. Roxanne, did you have comments? Because you're our last person inside.
As usual. Yapping. No, I don't, other than I'm really glad to see the email from the Tatum guy who's doing the study that we can, looks like we really can go forward with that. It'll be great. We'll basically not be purchasing any electricity at all until such time as we have to find something else. We know what we're doing with the other panels on the roof in a couple more years, but, and we have a really good, baseline to keep evaluating it, so that's great, that we don't have to come up with a new proposal for $100,000.
Will that cover the
2 days?
electricity for the charger? The
Yeah.
vehicle charger?
Well, the electricity for the charger is part of the electricity demand for town hall, it's, you can't tell it separately. So, yeah.
Yeah, in theory, and so I'm interested to see the report because when we talked to NICEAG, when Chrissa and I talked to NICEAG, they told us that if we hadn't connected to the remote metering program before 2017, we couldn't do it. And so that's where my anxiety lives, the difference between those two. So I'm really hoping Tatum's right, because that would be a lot better. But if it did, it looks like we could generate enough solar power at the highway barn to cover everything there, here, as well as our lighting district. And there's one other thing.
Yeah, the street lights, the light district, everything.
It was the lighting district, and then there was one other thing, and I can't remember what it was.
Pump house, maybe?
Maybe so. Nope, we don't actually pay the electric bill on that.
It's basically, he cuts it in all the electric.
But the tank.
Yep.
That one.
Nope, Town of Ithaca actually paid that one, so. I
move to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, no,
Are
you
you
didn't
done?
want the rest of the report.
Oh,
Was there anybody else online who wishes to address us? Sorry, Carl and Linda, did you want to say anything to us before we leave?
Not tonight.
Okay, awesome, well, thank you for being here.
Bye-bye.
Carl? Okay,
No,
have a good night.
Good night.
Night.